The Blood Countess, history's most feared woman. What if I told you that one of history's most terrifying figures wasn't a king, wasn't a warrior, and wasn't a monster from a legend? She was a real woman, a noble woman who lived in a massive castle. A woman accused of crimes so horrifying that, more than 400 years later, people still debate whether she was a monster or the victim of a conspiracy. This is the story of Elizabeth Báthory, the woman many call the Blood Countess. Chapter 1. A Child of Power. The year was 1560. In the Kingdom of Hungary, a girl named Elizabeth Báthory was born into one of the most powerful noble families in Europe. She grew up surrounded by wealth, servants, and influence. While most people struggled to survive, Elizabeth lived in luxury. She received an education that was rare for women at the time. She could read and write multiple languages. She was intelligent, wealthy, and respected. But no one could imagine the dark legends that would one day surround her name. Chapter 2. The Castle of Fair. At just 15 years old, Elizabeth married a powerful nobleman. Together, they lived in huge castles and controlled vast lands. As the years passed, her husband spent much of his time away fighting wars. That left Elizabeth in charge. Servants came and went. Young girls arrived to work in the castle. And rumors slowly began to spread. Whispers traveled through villages. People claimed servants were disappearing. Some said screams could be heard from inside the castle walls. Others believed terrible punishments were taking place behind closed doors. But nobody dared challenge one of the most powerful women in the kingdom. Chapter 3. The Dark Rumors. Years passed. The rumors grew darker. Witnesses later claimed that servant girls were beaten harshly for the smallest mistakes. Others described cruel punishments. Stories spread from village to village. Many people became terrified of the castle. But there was a problem. Rumors are not evidence, and for years, nobody investigated the claims seriously. Elizabeth remained untouchable. Her wealth and status protected her, at least for a while. Chapter 4. The Investigation. Everything changed in 1610. Authorities finally decided to investigate. Officials collected testimonies from dozens of witnesses. Servants, villagers, and former workers were questioned. The stories they told shocked the kingdom. Many claimed young girls had disappeared after entering the castle. The accusations became so serious that the government could no longer ignore them. Soon, officials arrived at Elizabeth's home. What they discovered would become one of history's greatest mysteries. Chapter 5. Arrested. Elizabeth Báthory was arrested. Several of her servants were accused of helping her. Some were put on trial. Under questioning, shocking claims emerged. The allegations were so extreme that they spread across Europe. Newspapers, storytellers, and writers began turning Elizabeth into a terrifying legend. The public was fascinated. The Blood Countess had become famous. But there was one major problem. Many of the stories could not be independently verified, and some historians still question them today. Chapter 6. Monster or Victim. This is where the story becomes complicated. For centuries, Elizabeth Báthory has been portrayed as one of history's worst criminals. However, some modern historians believe the truth may not be so simple. They argue that powerful political figures had reasons to remove her. She owned enormous amounts of land and wealth. If she lost power, others stood to gain. Could some accusations have been exaggerated? Could politics have played a role? Or was she truly as cruel as the stories claim? Even today, historians continue to debate the answer. Chapter 7. The Blood Legend. One of the most famous stories about Elizabeth is also the most controversial. According to legend, she believed that the blood of young women could preserve her beauty. It is this story that earned her the nickname, the Blood Countess. But there is a catch. Most historians believe this tale appeared years after her downfall. There is little reliable evidence that it actually happened. Yet the legend became incredibly popular, and over time, the myth became even more famous than the real person. Chapter 8. Her final years. Instead of being publicly executed, Elizabeth received a different punishment. She was confined to her castle, alone, cut off from the outside world. The once powerful noblewoman who had ruled vast lands spent her final years in isolation. In 1614, she died, but her story didn't end there. In fact, that was only the beginning. Chapter 9. The Legacy of Fair. For more than 400 years, Elizabeth Báthory's name has survived. Books were written about her, movies were inspired by her, writers transformed her into a horror icon. Some describe her as history's most feared woman. Others see her as a victim of political enemies. The truth may never be known. And perhaps that's why people remain fascinated by her story, because the most terrifying mysteries are the ones that never receive a final answer. Was Elizabeth Báthory truly a monster? Or was she the victim of one of history's greatest conspiracies? We'll probably never know. But one thing is certain. The legend of the Blood Countess refuses to die. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more dark history, forgotten mysteries, and real stories stranger than fiction. Thanks for watching.